He had billions, power, and everything money could buy. Yet one night, dressed as a poor stranger, he knocked on the wrong door. What happened inside that tiny apartment, with a struggling mother and her young daughter, revealed a truth so powerful it changed his life forever. Stay with this story until the end, because one act of kindness will show you what real wealth truly means. I wore an old jacket that smelled of dust and rain. The fabric scratched my neck as I stepped off the bus. Cold air crept under my sleeves and settled against my skin. People hurried past me, eyes fixed forward, shoes tapping like impatience on concrete. I stood still, feeling invisible in a city I owned from the top floors. For the first time in years, my hands were empty. No assistant, no driver, no phone buzzing with power, only silence and the weight of my choice. I had left my glass office before dawn. I had traded tailored suits for worn shoes. I wanted to see life from the ground, not from reports, not from numbers, from the street. My stomach tightened as hunger began to speak, a slow ache. A reminder that money usually erased. I walked past glowing cafes and shining windows. Warmth lived behind the glass. Laughter floated out with the smell of bread. I kept walking. A sudden shove jolted my shoulder. Someone muttered an apology without stopping. My balance shook. My pride followed. I reached a quieter street where buildings leaned close together. Paint peeled like tired skin. A flickering streetlight buzzed above me. My heart beat louder than the city. This was the discomfort I came for. This was the truth I avoided. I sat on a cold step and rested my back against brick. The stone pulled heat from my body. I closed my eyes and listened. A distant siren. A train humming underground. My own breath slow and uneven. Then I heard a door open. Soft footsteps. A gentle voice. "Are you okay, sir?" I opened my eyes. A woman stood a few steps away, holding a grocery bag. Beside her was a little girl with curious eyes and a tight grip on her sleeve. Light spilled from their doorway onto the pavement. Warm light, safe light. I felt exposed. I felt small. I nodded, unsure what to say. The woman studied my face, not with fear, not with judgment, with concern. "You look cold," she said. The girl looked at my shoes, then at my face. She whispered, "Mama, he looks sad." The words hit harder than any insult. The woman knelt to the child's level. "Sometimes people carry heavy days," she said. Then she looked back at me. "We have soup," she added. The offer stunned me. No questions, no conditions, just warmth. I followed them inside. The apartment was small, clean, simple. The air smelled of onions and hope. A pot simmered on the stove. The girl pulled out a chair for me. It wobbled slightly under my weight. The woman poured soup into a bowl. Steam rose like comfort. My hands trembled as I held the spoon. I had shaken hands with presidents. I had signed deals worth billions, yet this moment made my chest ache. We ate in quiet, not awkward, peaceful. The soup warmed my throat. My eyes burned. The woman spoke softly about her day. Long hours, low pay, still grateful. The girl talked about school, about drawing sons and houses, about wanting to help people when she grew up. Her words were simple, her heart was vast. I felt something crack open inside me. A sound came from the hallway, heavy footsteps, a raised voice from another apartment. My body tensed. The woman noticed. She smiled gently. "You are safe here," she said. That sentence shook me. I had security teams, I had armored cars, yet I had never felt safety like this. The night deepened outside. The streetlight flickered again. I realized how close pain lived to kindness, how thin the wall between struggle and grace truly was. As I sat there, warmed by soup and sincerity, I understood that this moment was changing something permanent inside me, and the truth of who I was and who I needed to become began to rise, quietly. Steadily, as the little girl reached across the table and placed her small hand over mine, and I felt a responsibility that no amount of money had ever placed on my heart. And I knew that what I had come to observe was now asking me to act. And the story of that choice was only beginning as the night outside grew calmer, and the light in that small apartment continued to glow. The warmth of her small hand stayed with me. It traveled up my arm and settled in my chest. I looked at the woman. Her eyes carried fatigue and strength in equal measure. I asked her name. She said it gently, as if names mattered here. I shared a simple one in return, not my real name, a lighter truth. The girl smiled as if she trusted it anyway. The woman cleared the table with quiet grace. Each movement careful, each sound soft, The apartment hummed with ordinary life, a clock ticking, water running, the world continuing. I offered to help. She hesitated, then handed me a towel. I dried dishes that had fed me more than soup. They fed my soul. The girl watched closely. She laughed when a plate slipped and caught itself. Her laughter filled the room like music. I noticed the cracks in the walls, the patched floor, the thrift store curtains fluttering with the night air. This place held struggle. Yet it also held dignity. The woman spoke again, this time slower. She spoke of choices, of leaving something unsafe, of starting over with nothing but a child and courage. Her voice did not tremble. But her hands did. I listened. I truly listened. My mind replayed boardrooms and arguments, voices raised over profit, over pride. Those sounds felt distant now. The girl climbed onto her chair and leaned closer to me. She asked why I sat outside earlier. Her question was honest, sharp. I searched for words. I wanted to understand, I said. She nodded. As if that answer made perfect sense. A knock echoed through the apartment, sharp, unexpected. The room froze, the woman stiffened, her breath caught. The girl slipped from her chair and pressed close to her side. My heart pounded. The knock came again, louder. I stood without thinking. My body remembered danger. The woman whispered for me to stay back. Her voice held fear now, real fear. She moved toward the door, slowly, carefully. I felt the air thicken, every sound sharpened, the hum of the light. The scrape of shoes on the floor. She opened the door just enough to see. A man stood there, tired, angry, the past clinging to him like a shadow. My pulse roared in my ears. The girl gripped her mother's shirt. The man spoke. Low, demanding, the woman answered firmly, her spine straight. Her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I stepped forward into the light. Not rich, not powerful, just present. The man noticed me. His eyes narrowed. Confusion replaced anger. The moment stretched, thin, fragile. I felt how easily lives could tip here. How quickly safety could vanish. And as I stood between that door and the family who had shown me kindness without knowing who I was, I understood that this night was no longer about observation. And that the choices I made next would echo far beyond this small apartment, far beyond this street, as the silence deepened and every breath waited for what would happen next. The man's gaze moved from my face to the room behind me. His jaw tightened. The hallway light flickered, throwing shadows across his features. The woman spoke again, calm, clear. She asked him to leave. He scoffed. A short sound filled with old resentment. He stepped closer. The air shifted. I felt it on my skin, heavy, unforgiving. The girl whimpered softly. That sound cut through me. I raised my hands slowly. Open palms, no threat, only presence. I spoke evenly. I asked him to breathe, to think, to remember what mattered. My voice surprised me, steady. Grounded, the man hesitated. His eyes flicked to the child. Something cracked there, just for a moment. The woman placed her hand on her daughter's head, protective, unyielding. The silence stretched again, thick enough to taste. Finally, the man stepped back, not defeated, not healed, just paused. He muttered something under his breath, then turned away. His footsteps faded down the stairs. The door closed gently. The lock clicked. The sound echoed like relief. The woman leaned against the door, her strength drained all at once. The girl wrapped her arms around her waist. I stood there, my heart racing. My hands shook now, delayed fear, honest fear. The woman looked at me. Gratitude filled her eyes, unspoken, powerful. She thanked me quietly. I shook my head. The words felt wrong. I had done so little. The girl looked up at me, her eyes wide. She said I was brave. The words settled deep. I had faced hostile takeovers, public scrutiny, lonely nights at the top. None of that felt like bravery now. This did. The woman poured water into glasses. Her hands still trembled. We sat again at the small table, closer this time, bound by what we had shared. The city outside felt louder now, closer, alive. I asked how long they had lived here. She answered honestly, not long. Long enough, she spoke of rebuilding, of late nights, of choosing hope every morning despite fear. Each word carried weight, earned weight. The girl listened as if memorizing her mother's strength. I felt a pressure in my chest, a realization forming, slow, unavoidable. This family lived one crisis away from losing everything, and still they gave, still they shared. Still they opened their door to a stranger. The clock ticked louder. Time pressed forward. I knew the night would not last. I knew morning would demand answers, decisions, revelations. I looked around the room again. The worn furniture, the faded drawings taped to the wall, a life built with effort and love. And as the woman began to speak about tomorrow and the challenges waiting for her at dawn, I felt the full weight of my hidden identity pressing against my ribs. And I understood that revealing the truth would change everything in this room, and that keeping it hidden would also change everything. And that the choice between those two paths was approaching faster than I expected as the girl leaned closer to me and asked what I planned to do next. Her question lingered in the air. Simple, direct, heavy with trust. I looked at her small face, at the hope resting there without fear. I chose my words carefully. I said I planned to listen. The woman smiled faintly, as if listening itself had value. She stood and checked the window lock, a habit born from experience. The city glowed outside. Neon lights pulsed like restless thoughts. I felt the contrast sharply. Noise beyond the glass, peace inside these walls. The woman offered me the couch. Worn cushions, clean blanket. She apologized for its condition. I felt a sting at that apology. She owed me nothing. The girl brought me a pillow, too small, too soft, perfect. She told me it was her favorite, trust again, unfiltered. I lay back and stared at the ceiling. Hairline cracks traced stories above me. My body finally relaxed. My mind did not. Memories surfaced. A childhood bedroom larger than this apartment. Silence instead of laughter, help instead of connection. I realized how rarely I had been truly seen. Footsteps padded softly. The girl peeked around the corner. She asked if I was still sad. I answered honestly. Less than before, she nodded, satisfied. The woman called her to bed, a gentle firmness. The girl hesitated, then waved at me. Her hand lingered in the air. I waved back. The bedroom door closed. The apartment grew quieter, not empty, held. The woman sat across from me. She folded her hands. She asked no questions about my past. She spoke about tomorrow instead. About work starting early. About a school project due soon. About small worries that felt large. I listened again. Every detail mattered. I felt a growing urgency, a pull toward action. Toward responsibility. I imagined the impact of one phone call, one signature, one decision. The thought unsettled me. Power felt different now, not distant, immediate. The woman noticed my silence. She asked if I was all right. I said yes. Not fully true, not fully false. Outside, a car alarm blared and stopped, life interrupting itself. I stood and thanked her for everything. The words felt insufficient. She replied that kindness was meant to move, that it never stayed in one place. Her words stayed with me deeply. I lay down again. Sleep hovered near but stayed just out of reach. My heart beat steadily, my thoughts sharpened. I knew morning would demand courage, a different kind, not the courage to survive. The courage to change lives without control. And as the city slowly quieted and the apartment breathed around me, I understood that the true test of who I was would begin at sunrise, when comfort ended and truth demanded to be spoken. And I remained awake, waiting, preparing for the moment that would redefine every promise I had ever made to myself and to others. Morning arrived quietly. Soft light slipped through the thin curtains. The apartment woke before the city. I heard movement in the kitchen, the clink of a cup, the low hum of routine. I stood and felt different, lighter, clearer. The woman greeted me with the same calm kindness. The girl smiled as if nothing in the world was uncertain. That steadiness gave me courage. I told them the truth, not dramatically, not proudly, simply. I spoke of who I was, of the life I lived behind glass and distance. Of the reason I had come undercover. Silence followed, not shock. Not anger, just stillness. The woman listened the same way she had all night, with dignity, with balance. She thanked me for my honesty. The girl asked if I was still the same person. I said yes. She nodded and smiled again. That was all that mattered to her. I left later that morning, but I did not leave unchanged. In the weeks that followed, I returned, not as a savior, not as a hero. As a partner, I helped quietly. Education support, stable housing, opportunities earned with respect, no favors, only fairness. The woman rebuilt her life with her own strength. The girl grew surrounded by safety and possibility, and I returned to my world with a new measure of success. One not defined by numbers, but by impact, by presence, by humanity. The moral is simple and enduring. Kindness given without expectation holds the greatest power. True wealth is revealed not when you have everything, but when you choose to share even when you have little. And sometimes, the smallest acts of compassion can change not only a life in need, but also the heart of the one who believed he already had it all. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it touched your heart, please share it, leave a comment below, and let someone know. You are never alone.